Bellular video about how War Within, the thumbnail says it finally feels like Warcraft again. To me, it felt like Warcraft in Dragonflight, but now it's extra Warcraft. Yeah, it's super Warcraft. It's more Warcrafter than it's been since the Wrath. Yep. Okay, are we ready?
Okay then, new WoW expansion's out, and for many people, the one question in their head is WoW back?
Is it good?
Right? Is it going to be back? Can it even be back? Like, is it even possible for Blizzard to win people back who have maybe wandered away from the game over the last while? The reason why I bring it up as my framing device for this entire video is that Blizzard obviously wants people back. Like, everything they're doing with the saga, the almost forced feeling, get back in the fight, marketing tagline. Like, they basically want to say that they're back. So, can I tell you it's back? Obviously, in the grander sense, no, that's impossible. Somehow, Season 1 could come out and ruin the whole thing, and the patches could end up blowing, right? So, I can't tell the future. Here's what I can do, right? I can tell you what this take on WoW looks like and feels like. I mean, for all of its improvements, Dragonflight just had so little pace, so little threat, so little quality storytelling. It was much better as a game, but it kind of failed to be a really good example of Warcraft. I think that's why so many people looked at Dragonflight and kind of just snoozed. So here's...
With Dragonflight, I felt like it was fine. I felt like the story was fine. Like, it didn't blow me away. It was good. It was like good for a WoW story is how I would have described it back then. It was decent. It didn't make me very excited. It didn't upset me. It was mid, I guess. Maybe a little better than mid. But with War Within, it has actually been a phenomenal storytelling experience.
To deal with War Within, we are a team here, and I personally had played barely any narrative stuff on the beta.
Oh, I'm not going to be able to watch very much of this video because I see in the chapters spoiler-free audio, spoilers on screen. But I don't want to watch any spoiler on screen.
And that's because Matt led a reviewing and testing, and my reason there was really simple. I wanted to be able to sit down today and give this to you proper. Actual, real, fresh, experiential opinion. And I've not done that for years because I've always been in beta tests. But this time, it matters. Blizzard says it's the start of a new era, so I need to be able to judge it on a real experience and not having just spent months shot calling it based on playing the beta all the time. To actually have an authentic reaction. Because look, other than briefly flying around 2 zones and working with Matt in videos, I have spent barely any time on Castle Gar until now. I'll tell you what, I am real glad I did it that way. This has been an interesting 12 hours. By the way, this is spoiler free until a short bit later on, and I will heavily signpost it, so don't worry. Feel free to listen to this video. Obviously, things will be on screen. If you don't want to see what's on screen, don't look at the screen and just have a listen.
I'll just hide it.
Now, the first thing to talk about is the intro. Man, the intro. I mean, look, this is definitely closer to the sort of AAA WoW quest with a fast pace that I think Warlords of Draenor managed to establish in its intro. And I know that for a lot of people, the WoD intro got real tired because back in the day, they didn't have skips, and you might have done it 30 times. But I actually think that is the best intro to an expansion they had made. I think it clobbered every single other one that they did from then until now.
Smart.
This intro actually grabbed me properly, so I would say, yeah, GG. This is absolutely the opposite of the Maw intro, which was really not the nicest way to kick off Shadowlands. But goddamn, it really did set the tone for that expansion, didn't it? Now, to talk about the main story stuff in a spoiler-free way, I'm actually going to say that I'm a big fan. There is no fat on the MSQ, right? There is no fat.
Yeah, there's no fat.
And this actually worried me because people were doing numbers,
it's
right?
So
just
clean.
crunching like literally the number of quests that exist. And as it turns out, War Within will feel shorter because its main campaign is quite a bit shorter, but the actual quest count is massive because there are so many side quests. Now, basically, Blizzard in an interview said that they wanted to go a little bit more lean so they can just focus on the good stuff during the main quest, and for the people who want to do loads of questing and get loads of world building, they can do the side quests. Now, initially I thought,
are the side quests really voiced, though? Are there side quests that are voiced?
Oh no, come on, guys. You can't make the main story even shorter. World of Warcraft already humongously struggles getting its story across. And that's where this one actually impressed me. The main story that I'm playing through, and by the way, I've done the first 3 zones, it is not the story of the War Within, the expansion in a grand sense. And usually I'd say that would be a bad thing, or perhaps a worrying thing. Instead, what this is the opening thrust of the expansion. That much is extremely clear. And what you get through the main quest is a strong adventure with a consistent cast of characters that is just done pretty well, actually, for what it is. I mean, it's the polar opposite of Legion's whole thing with the Pillars of Creation, where that was just a stupid MacGuffin hunt. I mean, the Oath Stones from Dragon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through again on NA, because I have to do the whole campaign again for NA. And now going back and doing it the second time, I can start to see how much it's like, it's actually even more fun going through it the second time, because you can start to see how much the characters changed and grew because of the experiences that you have together. Like when you first meet Magni at the very beginning of the campaign, and he's like, Azeroth, speaker sucks. I hate being bullshit. And he's a horrible attitude. And he's tired of being a, diamond guy, and he's just over it. He's done. Like he just feels like disconnected. And that's a recurring theme that you see from a lot of characters, that it's like reinforced in different ways to tell us a coherent story with the similar themes throughout. So Magni felt disconnected from Azeroth and then found that faith again. Ilaria felt disconnected from her power in the void and then learned to isolate herself less by reaching out to other people and like getting not getting lost in that, because it's really her I guess like people finding out that really their source of strength is maybe isn't necessarily these magical entities like Azeroth or the light or the void, but it's really the friends they made along the way. Like, I know that sounds really cheesy, but that's kind of how it's been. I mean, that's the thing that ties everybody together, and how they're able to overcome the self-doubt that they have of not being able to channel or connect with these power sources that they normally rely on. And people just having to realize that maybe we need to rely on each other a little more, and through that then maybe get some of that power back in the process.
Dragonfly, like, what the hell was going on there? The zones just did not really feel that well motivated or tied together. Here, though, the zones just flow into each other in a buttery smooth way, to the point where, as you move from Zone 3 into Zone 4, you actually will probably only realize that you've entered Zone 4 like a little bit in, because just the transition in the questing is that smooth. It's not like the story just goes, okay, we have stopped, move on to the next zone, where it will all be different with different characters and feel disconnected, like, say, Dragonflight was. No, it was a nice, smooth intro, same cast of characters, and it set up the immediate, I suppose, impetus for me going into the final zone real well. Basically, I'd say their ability to tie the zones together.
That's true. I didn't think about that before, but the zones are tied together a lot better than in the previous expansions. Like, they all interconnect in different ways. Like, the Isle of Dorn connects with the Ringing Deeps because you need to get in touch with the machine speakers down there because of the Coreway situation and the Awakening machine. And then the Hollowfall ties in, of course, with Ashkahet because they're constantly being attacked by nerubians. And the Nerubian ties into everything else because they're trying to attack the Earthen and the Titan creations and stuff. So it's all pretty well tied together, I'd say. It's very it's very polished. You said the side quests are 10 times better story than the campaign? What? Which side quest should I do? Because yesterday I did a side quest and I literally cried. I cried real tears doing a side quest in Isle of Dorn. So let me know some other side quests I should hit up today.
I guess just a solid through line of narrative competence, actually, that really does shine through. So what I've been able to gather here is that anything that could be considered to be like time-sensitive, pressing stuff that really matters, that's MSQ. And then
the lantern one. I cried.
Side quests will exist in an evergreen fashion, and they just kind of bulk out the world. And I do, quite surprisingly, approve of this style, and there's a very fundamental reason. Less but better. It's one of the sort of design adages. And I think what happened, right, is previously WoW had done a real bad job with its expansion main quests. They just didn't really hold a candle to what other games were doing. So I heard Blizzard say they wanted to make them shorter, and that just really spooked me. But
I wonder what other games he is talking about right now. I mean, it's true. They did. This is why the competition in the marketplace is good for everybody. Because they saw what was working really well for Final Fantasy XIV and realized, holy shit, we can get people so engaged in our game and so in love with our world by focusing on story and making story a priority.
But here, though, this is absolutely less but better. The overall sense of just like dollars per quest, like we're getting less quests in the MSQ, but the dollars per quest definitely feels like it has gone way up. And that has just led to an experience that's been far more compelling, and that is important because guess what? I immediately feel more invested in the zones that I'm in, the stuff that's going on, than I did in, say, Dragonflight or, Shadowlands, obviously, or even BFA, because I've went through those zones with a real just, tight, small story to the point where I'm engaged and I'm left wanting more. And then, when I'm left wanting more, I can go and do the side quests. So it actually works quite well. Makes you give a shit first.
I'm so glad to hear everybody's been having such a good time with this story, because I've really enjoyed it.
Then,
too.
I suppose.
I know that Bellular has been really positive about FF14 and has made a bunch of FF14 content, having fallen in love with the game during the big exodus that happened in Shadowbringers. So it's really cool to see all these WoW creators go back to War Within, maybe with a fresh perspective on MMO storytelling after playing through Shadowbringers. And it's cool. I feel like we can all have more intelligent conversations about story now because of our shared experiences.
Gives you the more bulky MMO-like stuff in the side quests. Now, you will have to do a little bit of side questing to actually hit the right amount of XP because it is a shorter campaign, but overall, I think that works fine. Now, I also want to talk about gameplay. One of the things when playing FF14 that I really, really liked
FF14 mentioned. FF14 mentioned
was the solo trials. And this is where they've actually captured a strength that FF14 had done real well with what they would call solo duty. So let's say there's a boss fight between like you and some other character in FF14. They may just do that as a pretty cool scripted 1v1 duel. It's a thing that they've done pretty well in the past, and Blizzard are not really doing like a one-to-one sort of identical thing here, but what they are doing is continually trying to keep the gameplay just a lot more engaging. Now, where this works best...
Okay, so I think he's talking about when you get a 1v1 battle, like what happened in Dawn Trail with Galul Jaja that you fight, that everybody really liked that moment. But what I've seen that Blizzard has been doing with War Within is, well, first of all, there's a shitload more combat. Okay, it's not even comparable. There's a shitload more combat that is telling you the story while you're going through it. But there's scenarios. So there's a scenario thing that you go through where instead of just you fight one boss, it takes you into a special little area, and then you fight like a pack, and it's like a mini dungeon kind of with just you and a couple of NPCs. And they also have the follower dungeon, which is seamlessly blended in with the story. So you can just go straight into the follower dungeon, do the whole dungeon with AI, and the AI, they are talking to you about what's happening in the story. I mean, the AI are characters that you were just with in the story, and they're voiced saying, what's going on. Like, he's actually showing on screen right now. I'm not showing his screen the whole time because he's showing some spoilery footage, but this is the first dungeon. It's a follower dungeon that you go into in the very first zone of the story. And the NPC is a major quest NPC that you've been with up to this point, who's like, here's the Storm Perch. This is the command center in Rookery. And then like you learn about the Storm Riders and what's been going on with them through this experience. So it's a very interactive, and it's like, this is blending the gameplay with the story so that they are just the same package and not like, okay, now it's time for story. Now it's time for a little gameplay. Now we're going to do story. It's not really like that so much in Earthen. That's something that I've really liked about it.
Is in the scenarios.
It's like I'm more playing a game than I'm watching a movie.
So the first one is...
Not that I would, and to be clear, like, I think that comparing FF14 and WoW is very difficult. The games are extremely different, and I wouldn't ever want one to be completely like the other. But I do think that recently there has been not enough combat at all in the story that FF14 has. So if they could take a couple of ideas of how the story gets interwoven into combat stuff, scenario type things, boss battle type things more often, that would be good. Doesn't need to be exactly like this. We need to fight a little more so I feel more like I'm playing a game as I'm going through story. That's all I'm trying to say.
The Rookery dungeon. Now, going in, I thought I'd just be doing the dungeon with a few random NPCs, and that would really just be that. No, in this case, I was going into that dungeon with, let's just say, strong narrative impetus, with characters connected to that dungeon, and, you know, they had dialogue and all of that stuff as I was going through the dungeon, and I was able to do that solo, right? Not having to queue up for a group. And what it basically just meant was, it felt like I was playing a level of a video game again. I was really quite impressed by that, and they continually did it, like just here and there as we went on. We were just seeing more scenarios being used.
Those little scenarios.
To pretty damn good effect. So even though some stuff may be just a little bit too easy for my liking, I think they've basically knocked it out of the park there. Like, compared to where they were, this is a massive improvement, and it just means they can actually make what your character does kind of fit the story instead of just having tiny little quests and telling you things all the time. So that's a big win in my book. Another thing is just
it was a lot
what
of
you're doing in the quest. So number one, like, you'll have so many different quests that have little mechanics. Like, one of them is tower defense inspired. Hell, they even did a bombing run segment that, and this is shocking, that actually felt engaging. Like, narratively it was good, but basically you're doing this bombing run, Faerun's there, Illyria's there, they basically control your abilities, and it's not that it's like mechanically amazing, but it's just the way that Blizzard moves the camera, actually the animations for the abilities, how the abilities are tied to the character. Essentially, it's just put together with more intent and more confidence than I've seen in their recent work, and that really is a plus. Then I want to touch on delves. Number one, I do actually think they're pretty engaging. They're definitely way too easy, but I think a lot of us are coming in like
tier 3.
500 plus, you know, like Dragonflight characters. So at tier 1, 2, and 3, we do absolutely just melt stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, I think the strengths of delves that I talked about in previous videos based on the beta testing stuff with Matt, that is all really there. What I feel a lot more though here is, in a world where you just have a better signal to noise ratio with the MSQ, basically keeping that engaging, hopping off to do a delve is a good replacement for just random quests that would have just been filler. And I think it does contribute to a more well-rounded overall experience when you're just going through the world, especially if you put on top of that like mining, herbing, fishing, all of that stuff, and picking up treasures and all of that.
Yeah, that's true. I think it was pretty neat to be questing and then stumble upon a delve and feel like, well, maybe I will just knock this out while I'm here. And it felt like a really different thing to do. If you're just been questing for a long time, it gives you something totally different and off the beaten path sort of to check out, and I really enjoyed it for that reason.
Oh, my mini map just lit up, let me do a thing. It just means
I'm gonna be doing a ton of delves
around the world works. And I suppose on that, man, the world is big, the world is gorgeous. I think this is again just some of their finest work, and it does also, I think, touch onto production values, which are just continually so damn high in this compared to what we've seen before. Basically, going through all of the different little cutscenes, there are way more custom animations than there used to be, especially you'll see maybe towards the.
You said I really hope people that hate delves don't kill it. Like they did with Forefronts. Some people are okay with slightly easier / more relaxing content. Well, I think that's another strength of delves, is that you can choose which difficulty you want it on. So you can do it at a low difficulty and just get transmogs and get the rewards that you want, or you can go balls to the wall if you want to as well. So having that ability to tailor your experience to whatever you want to, plus get a vault slot from doing like I think 4 delves a week is pretty huge. I struggle to see how people would have a problem with it. And also, I was very happy to see, after doing a bunch of delves on my warrior, that experience is account wide. That's across my warband. So Bran still had all the shit that I got him when I was doing delves on my warrior. He's still like, and I'm leveling him up. So I felt like it's a system that rewards me very much for playing a ton of different classes, not just because of the warband wide Bran level ups, but also because of the In fact, certain delves feel like they're going to be better for certain classes. Like some of them are going to be better for range, some are going to be better for melee, some will be better for single target. And so that is a really cool thing that I'm planning to it could be fun to have certain characters ready for certain delves, so you can really push yourself with the game being so alt friendly now. Having something that actually rewards me for that instead of punishing me for it is incredible as kind of an altaholic person.
Like the intro stuff in this expansion, again, just high effort, lots of custom animations, you know, nice big custom rigs, but all that.
I would say though, my biggest complaint with delves right now, the XP that you get for doing it is completely dog shit. Like if I do a tier 3 delve, I should be given amount of XP that correlates with how long it took me to do the delve. The amount of XP you get is horrible. Like it is not okay. They really need to buff it up quite a lot, because I still wanted to do it because they're fun. And like I said, it's something different to do besides the story content, just to get spice things up. But holy crap. I was like close to a level yesterday, and I'm like, oh, I'll just hop in this delve and I'm sure I'm gonna get enough XP because I'm so close to leveling. I did not. I did the whole tier 3 delve. It took me a while and I just still hadn't leveled. I was so upset.
Actually working within the game engine, so they don't need to play some sort of pre-rendered file, which means your character can actually be there in the cutscene. Just all of that stuff is way better, and I think I just said earlier, like $1 per quest feels higher in the MSQ. That really shines at the production values.
That's
and a part
really,
of that is music.
That's true, man.
And I don't really have that much to say.
Every quest mattered. Every quest mattered. Every time you turn in a quest, you hear a voice little conversation about what just happened.
About music, because it's one of those things, and it really
filler.
Must bug musicians working in games, because often what will happen is somebody...
Well, if I was going to say any of it was filler, the most fillery part was maybe there's a couple kobold quests that could have been trimmed down a little. But apart from that, like I would say Hollow Fall onward is rock solid.
We will ship absolutely incredible music for a game, and then people won't really talk about it because it was just there reinforcing everything else people were doing in the game.
I like the kobolds,
music doesn't often like
I just felt like maybe that's, if I had to point to anything that I thought people might not be on the absolute edge of their seat for, it might be that. But then again, people might like it because it's kind of silly. It was a little change of pace.
Shout out it deserves. This is a case where it deserves a shout out. Seriously, the zone music, like the melodies, the instrumentation, these zones feel so much more rich. So if you are used to playing WoW without like ambience music turned on, you're totally missing out.
Music's
Definitely
so
for
good.
this expansion, have the music on.
Turn that on.
And that brings me to the zones. They are pushing fantasy damn hard in these zones. That's what I'll certainly say. I mean, the scale of the Ring Deeps Cavern just brings to mind lots of like Tolkien Legendarium art. So that like just really, really works for me. I think the machine speakers are also kind of great as a little faction. Obviously, Hallowfall is basically impeccable. I love the Isle of Dorne, and I've not really got that much into Ashkahet yet. What I will say, though, is from just playing side quests and milling about the place, reading the little lore collectibles and things, the world building is great. Especially in Hallowfall, you can find a lot there, and if you've noticed all those glyphs, well, yeah, people are working in deciphering.
You didn't finish Ashkahet, man!
Now, there's another thing I want to talk about, and that is tone, because, yeah, Dragonflight was weird, right? I mean, it was like Warcraft, but without the oomph. War Within is just a massive...
Make a video about Ashkahet, damn it. I can't believe you're going to talk about the story when it finishes. Ashkahet is my favorite one. You better make a whole video about Ashkahet to make it up to me. Okay.
Course correction from that, but in a way that I think shows that things have been learned. The problem I had with Dragonflight is not that there were emotions in it, because there's some people, I mean, they see like Anduin having obvious PTSD from the incredibly messed up stuff that happened, and people just say, oh, but Anduin, it was the jailer's fault. Why would Anduin feel bad? Imagine how you would feel if you were locked in your own body, feeling like a physical rush as you murder people. Like, yeah, it would be pretty traumatizing. What that, of course, does is set Anduin up for a really good character arc, which does involve him actually being in the fight and doing shit. And that's the bit where I think we're really advancing. Previously in Dragonflight, I think the dialogue was, I think, really quite awful for quite a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't really know what was going on with Dragonflight, but I think it really struggled with its dialogue. And
with
then
Dragonflight.
it was clear, like, some people at Blizzard just got some emotional intelligence appeared, and they were better at talking about emotions and interpersonal stuff. And yeah, that totally shone through in Dragonflight. The problem was that Dragonflight kind of forgot to be a Warcraft thing. So I think what we're seeing here is the benefit.
I really have enjoyed Anduin's arc, for sure. And all you need to do to appreciate Anduin's arc is have a little bit of empathy for what he's gone through. And this seems to be something that people have struggled with. But hopefully after going through the story, they will, people who were not able to extend that empathy to him before for being mind controlled and forced to kill people, maybe they can see how that was traumatic for him after going through the story. I can't, yeah. Because I really like him. And I think it's completely understandable. To me, there was a moment where Farron was like, did you like killing people, or did you like not having to agonize over every action that you made? And that was such a good line. It was that really cut straight to why it actually bothered him so fucking much, because he felt free in that moment. And it didn't, and man, it showed us that it was really feeling liberated from the expectation and having to be who he is expected to be. That is why that was so exhilarating for him. And that was probably what the part of him that enjoyed it. And being, I don't know. I also really, really loved how Anduin, and this is true for everybody, almost everybody, Anduin didn't get this like, oh, you told me that you believe in me, and now I can call the light. Thank you for believing in me. And thank you for being my friend. Now I'm super strong light wielder again. Hooray. Like, that never happened, thank God. Instead, it was just more like, okay, maybe I can take the next step forward. Maybe I can accept that I'm the king of Stormwind now. And he still made mistakes along the way. And that's true for Ilaria as well, who also still also made mistakes along the way. I gotta hand it to them. They did a lot with very little room to do it in. And to me, that's a sign of excellent writing.
Benefits that emotional maturity can bring, but of course, the thing is, it's got to exist with balance. There has to be action that's exciting. There has to be stakes. And I think they've basically walked a fine line, but I think they've walked it fairly well. There are still some parts where, like, specific wording will make me, like, just cringe a little bit, which sometimes ends up being a good test, because there's a lot of times where I notice with Blizzard things, I'm just a little smidge cheesed out, but a lot of other people are very, very, very excited. So I don't take that as a particularly bad sign. And again, not to do spoilers, but I think what's basically helped is you are constantly harried by the enemy the entire way through the campaign, and it feels like you're dealing with an active enemy.
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
less like, say, bits of Dragonflight where, you arrive somewhere, there's a bunch of random primalists, you don't really know anything about the primalists, you kill them, you move on. It's just boring.
Oh man, that's true. That's another thing I didn't think about. How the Nerubians feel like a bigger and scarier threat than the primalists ever did. I'm thinking back to, there was a moment where the Nerubians, you find out about this weird blood around in the caves, and the Nerubians are harvesting some of it with these virus-looking machines. And I still don't know. That's so ominous. We still don't really know a lot about the blood, and we don't know a lot about why they're doing that or what they're doing it for, and that is scary. So I think keeping that mystery there and that sense of unknown with surrounding the enemies you face is really important to keeping them feeling like an actual threat, because really that's the heart of fear, is the thing being unknown to you. And they've done a pretty good job of keeping a lot of these things still very mysterious. Some of the bad things still mysterious, like even Belladar turning purple every now and then, which is incredible, by the way, for the zone. We don't know why that's really happening, but it's ominous as fuck. And that adds to this sense of danger because you're like, okay, maybe we are in over our heads a little bit. We don't really know exactly how to deal with this thing that we don't understand. And that sets it up for having a pretty solid group of antagonists.
Here, though, I mean, you just immediately understand the nerubians more. You have more of a connection to them, and they feel active. They keep on appearing, you know, showing up, getting the drop on you. I suppose where in the past it would feel like we just bumble into our enemies and kill them because we're strong, here it actually feels like a struggle with our enemies, and that just means that, like, the stakes, the conflict, it's all way better, but also there's a little bit of curiosity. And I guess that's where Dragonflight didn't really work. I mean, it could do some novel thing with a gimmicky quest with Chromia.
Yeah, and that's another thing that really sells the danger level of the Nerubians is the fact that is the interactions you have with the Arathi down there. Because you meet the Arathi and they are going through it. Like it was immediately apparent to me that they have a horrible life and everyone there has to be in the military. They're constantly fighting Nerubian attacks who are coming up from below to like pull them under, which is terrifying. And the fact that their whole society has to be built around fighting this shit off at all times. This, that's another thing that kind of makes this a more realistic threat to you. Unlike in Dragonflight, where you have the Primalists, and you find out, okay, the Primalists have been fighting dragons. They've been attacking dragons forever, and that's like their favorite thing to do is kill dragons. But in the end, it didn't really feel like we were that like they had been going through this massive struggle for so long. I didn't really believe it as much. It just kind of felt like a side enemy that, okay, they felt more like a pest, like a nuisance, like a minor annoyance, but not like their presence has transformed the way that we have to live. Like we have to survive because of them. This is a battle for survival
or whatever, but I never felt like something unexpected could happen. And here, I mean, the things that happen are expected, but it's just the way that they happen. They feel better motivated. Again, it just feels like our villains are more active and are trying to mess us up. And that's something that's all too rare in MMOs that so often have had to just rely on, here's a field, there's a house in the field, and we've placed a bunch of NPCs and a quest will lead you there, which would always end up feeling static. Here, though, it feels active, so overall for me with the zones, I am very pleased so far. And then the next thing that brings me to is the peoples. So here's the deal, right? The Earthen and the Arathi, I am immediately more engaged in them than really any of the stuff that was going on in the Dragon Isles. I only bring up Dragonflight because it's the most recent thing. So,
I
mean, there was so much in Dragonflight that I liked. I liked the Centaur, I liked the Tuskar, I thought the plot stuff was fine. Here, though, I think they've just pulled off the Earthen in a way that is way, way, way superior. And I guess what they've really done is they've taken the character of Magni. They've been realistic about what it would actually feel like to be Magni in his situation.
Yeah.
They've executed in his character well, but his internal struggle also mirrors so much of the societal struggle that the Earthen have. I think what I basically mean is that Blizzard's execution took something that I thought I would be pretty bored by and actually made it interesting to me. I guess just the narrative design is real solid there. Then the Arathi, look, they're basically all that I could hope for. I mean, it's enough for us to be like suspicious at their empire, but of course work with these people, these individuals that we find ourselves with. And as someone who's been pretty into the lore, I mean, there's a lot of things to do with them that absolutely makes my head spin in a good way. Let's talk about the spoiler react.
Okay, so the next part of the video is spoiler audio and discussion, so I'm going to skip it and I'll give you the link to this video if you'd like to listen to the rest. But I really liked the video because it helped me remember some things that I didn't really think about very much before, like about the enemy of the Nerubians and why they're a good threat. And the other thing about how well the zones are actually interconnected to each other. That I didn't really think about that before either. So I'm glad I watched it. Here's the link to the video. It's a really solid one. It is just a first impressions from Bellular, so I'm really looking forward to what he thinks of the story after going through the full campaign. He covered a lot of ground here, but Ashkahet, man. Ashkahet.